一刷根39大林邦呀，腾满腾腾啊巴扎呀扎呀。
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Margie Bushman, West Row, Santa Barbara Permaculture Network, and we say local to global because we took a course in 1997 with Bill Mollison, the founder of Permaculture, one of the founders, and it was such an amazing experience for us that we were on the land for 2 weeks with him, and I literally felt like my brain had been changed. It really had been that significant. We went home to our community, and Wes and I didn't want to be designers. We didn't want to be farmers. We weren't going to grow. I actually live in an urban environment, so if I am interested, I want to do it urban permaculture. But what we went back to our community to do was to make our community aware of permaculture, which was so new. It wasn't new, but it was new to our area, to the point that nobody would say they didn't know what permaculture was. So when we went back, no one knew it. You say, what is permaculture? And they'd get a look of quizzical look on their face. And we decided to use any means, any event to explain it to our community in as many ways as we possibly could. And we did it in as many ways as you could possibly imagine. We have something that's called the power of an event. So it's not, when you put on an event, it may seem like it's not that significant, but when we brought certain kind of speakers or authors, many of the people in the permaculture world were just getting their books published at that time, and we didn't really have publishers that were promoting them. Wes is a master of organizing book tours, and so that was one of our ways of going about it. We organized book tours. You might go to the next, or the one before. This is one of our favorite permaculture description, or how when people say, what is permaculture? That is actually one of our favorite. Dan Haggard, I don't know if he's a teacher in Santa Fe area, and he says permaculture is a design system. It's a design system. It's not it's not agriculture, it's not farming. It's a design system that reconciles human communities with the ecological imperatives of a living planet. We also worked, we're sort of jumping around, but this is our 4 doables. We are very interested in climate and the climate crises, and this is our 4 that are doable now and doable here, meaning wherever you are. And so we'll bring those up later, but here we are, doable here, doable now. We have marine permaculture, beavers in the landscape, regenerative farming, and ranching and biochar. That could also be carbon farming. But encouraging our community to not see that these are not solvable problems. They are solvable. What else would you say? I don't know how many of you have gone back to your communities, and things have changed a lot. But you're very excited about this thing called permaculture, and then you go back and nobody understands what you're saying. In fact, they might even have a resistance to it. And so that was our job, was to raise the consciousness in our community of what was possible, what was doable, and how exciting this whole thing could be. And we brought people in from every walk of life, seeing how it could indeed be a solution to their whatever we're thinking of. The local to global is we did start locally doing every event, every class. We took it to our community college. Want to chime in with everything we did locally. We, in short order, we got a permaculture design course taught at our community college, which is a very powerful strategy. So most of these things we're talking about are strategy, a design strategy. And whenever we're teaching at the community college, what we focused on is the invisible structures, the invisible systems, the constructs that make up your world that you don't notice until they disappear. And then you notice and you go, what was that worked or did not work or caused everything to collapse? Or possibly you go to another culture and you see, like we're here, and this is the beauty of these IPCs, is that you're seeing people do things maybe entirely differently than where you're from. And those are the constructs in a society or a culture. And from a permaculture perspective, you're looking how to tweak those, or how you can, with design strategies, maybe you're not going to change everything, but you can start thinking with that design mind on how to shift something. We, during part of our time, went through the crash of 2009, and nobody knew what to do, and it was a national currency that failed. And so there's strategies to keep a currency in your community solid, while the other thing is doing its boom and bust cycle. So we're encouraging students to begin looking at those things that you see around you, many times that you object to, you don't like. But this is the fun part. And this is what we're offering to younger generations coming up, is get excited about this, because you get to step in and be very instrumental in change that is your future. It's your future. And so it's not the time to, become, doom and gloom. It's step up. And so at the community college, we even, we had a Center for Sustainability that formed, and we started all kinds of programs and brought all kinds of young people. It's very important to know that everyone needs a livelihood. And so permaculture, sometimes someone will take it and you'll go home and your parents will go, what are you doing? You can't do farming. That's not a viable livelihood for your rest of your life. And so we brought in all these young people who had already started businesses. One example was these two young men had graduated from UC Berkeley Business College. And at the end, they learned about something called the blue economy, and how you take the waste product of one thing and make it the product of something else. Well, they immediately grasped that idea. They graduated, but they made a very, very successful business out of something that took this waste product that was a terrible problem. Think of Starbucks. Starbucks has all this coffee waste stream, and what to do with it. Where's it going to go? What are you going to use it for? And they figured out this way to grow gourmet mushrooms off of that as a substrate, and became very successful. And then in their own community of Oakland, which is economically challenged, they grew it in a warehouse right in Oakland. And then they had where the mushrooms had inoculated the coffee grounds. So then they went to their local farmers market and offered that to the locals to start their own garden. So they were doing two things: taking care of their own needs as far as finance and raising their family and having an income, because we can't say that people are not going to need an income. So we focused on that as a lot.
Right. And our city college is one of the top city colleges.
So community college, does everyone know what that is in your area? Do you have something similar to that?
Yeah. For a 3-year program.
It's 2 years of college that normally is free to community.
Yeah.
Normally, they take different forms. So one of our strategies, design strategies, was to get a permaculture design course taught in that community college, meaning everybody had access. You didn't have, in the early days, everyone said, permaculture design courses are too expensive. It's unfair. It's not equitable. And then we got it in there. We said, well, that's the strategy for making it equitable. So that permaculture design course is 5 credits. That is, if they were going on to a regular university, it could transfer on. And it also was mandatory for the environmental horticulture 2-year design and the 1-year restoration. And it literally changed the way those students who went through those programs, they were required to take it. It completely changed the way they thought about the work they were doing.
Yeah, we started that in 2009 and been successful running it since then. Like Margie and I just teach the invisible structures part. That's our favorite. The least favorite of everybody's is our favorite.
And most people, Bill Mollison said, chapter 14 in the design manual is the most important chapter that you'll read. And there's a lot of beautiful chapters in there. I don't know how many of you actually read the design manual. The patterns is beautiful. That's chapter 4, I think.
Yeah, the first 4 chapters, if
Oh,
you
they're
read
beautiful.
it anyways, read those.
And the rest seems to be land care.
Yeah.
But when you get to chapter 14? 14. I think it's 14. That's when he's saying the constructs of these invisible systems that are in place. And you'll be thinking of them tonight. Like what is, the one I thought of today was something like our credit cards. In the 1980s, there was a man, D. Hawk, that formed a Visa card. And he felt, and you don't think of that now, you tend to think of that as being a negative, credit cards. He felt money was too much of a top-down thing, and that you went from a bank and you had to beg for the money, and then that kept it sort of locked in. And this Visa card was one of the first things that allowed that to go, anybody had access to it. Now that's not so true now. I mean, if you apply for a credit card, and maybe you won't, but most people have that access. We take that for granted now. That was a conscious design. So those are the things that we're saying to you. Keep thinking. There's so much that can be. Go ahead about a trim. Wes is always talking about a trim tab. You know, like there's this tanker that's going a direction. Looks, you know, it's going to hit the whatever, but there's a trim tab at the bottom of that a small little tweak and sends you in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that's what you're all about. Because even coming to this international, this IPC, that's a tweak. You're all of you going home with information and changing people's minds.
Yeah.
So.
And understanding the trim tab, I experienced it when I was on an island. A big big tanker was coming towards the island, and it looked and looked and looked. I was standing on shore. I was sure me and the island, I would have to turn and run. But they had the trim tab on, and just as they looked like they hit the island, the boat turned. And that's what we got to look in life, to put that little trim tab in. We don't know where or when, but start that process so that we're not having something run, just we're not allowing things to go ahead without having some kind of influence. And we don't know when that'll turn. So
and when we began, we had this diagram that showed every sort of sector that we wanted to influence, and in that time period earlier, print media was still a very big thing. And so this was a publisher that was in our region, and we did that strategic thing of like, how can we align with this person who already has the structure? And then we began, he let us have a Santa Barbara section, and we began feeding all this material into his magazine, which was already good and picked up by everybody. Everybody loved it. And we did a permaculture issue. This is in 2000, a long time ago. And this just went out everywhere. In fact, one time I was walking Santa Barbara's beautiful walkable city, and there were people walking behind us, and they said, I think I'm going to move to Santa Barbara because of this. Because of this magazine, it shared so much in it that looked like...
Yeah, this is the first one Margie and I got to edit, the whole thing. This is our content. We were just a small part, but this what turned out to be, the editor was working on something else, and we said, we want to do this.
And we titled it Permaculture, A Quiet Revolution.
Yeah.
Sneaky, under the radar.
Yeah.
And that's a suggestion that we make, is that instead of seeing everything as going up against a mountain, and then that happens to many people. It used to happen much more frequently. In a few years, they thought they'd come up against a wall. And so we're suggesting this under the radar thing, and before you know it, everything's changed.
Yeah.
And it's been so sort of silent and just around, but it's a quiet revolution that's happening.
Yeah. So could you go back to the first slide? I'll just mention something. Over here, 2019, Margie and I Santa Barbara County became a local hero. We were acknowledged by all levels of government for our work. And this is the evolution of where you go. You change, and now you have influencers. You can reach them. They recognize you, and you can go into their offices and talk to them about ideas. But what Margie and I always said is, don't go with half-baked ideas. always have well-constructed ideas when you cross into a politician's office to offer them, because what they'll ask you is, how many other people would I get support from?
They need a constituency.
And they say, can you bring
Your
the
politicians are not your enemy.
Yeah.
They just need to show behind you a constituency that means, because they're out there on their own trying to represent all of you who have amazingly different opinions about everything.
Yeah.
And they might take up one cause and somebody else thinks that is terrible and someone thinks it's great. But if you can show a contingency of people that are behind them, they'll move forward with it.
Yeah,
Or they'll see.
you'll give them something they can put into legislation. Now that is a lot of work. It's not easy. But when you do that, you'll start seeing, they'll step forward with your ideas. So we found that at a local level, our city council passed all these laws around rainwater harvesting. So now you can be paid for having a tank, having your land landscaped for water, and for keeping water on. The city will pay you. And these are the things that we worked on. And these are the things that you have to have buy-in. The good thing was we had a drought for 7 years, so they were ready to listen to us.
And so, you've heard that saying,
Yeah,
a
right.
crisis is, how do you say that? It's
They-
an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity.
They called us in. Okay, we want to hear what you guys have to say.
We-
But we were on the edge, constantly educating the community so that there was a voice, not just ours. So that was the big thing.
And here's something to consider. Larry Santoyo is a teacher in our area, and he taught for many years in LA, urban area. And he said, one night I had a dream. And he said, in the dream, I'm in a table with all the officials and all the major everything sitting there in their suits and everything. And suddenly they realize this crisis where we are. And that their whole attention zoomed into him and said, now Larry, what? In other words, he'd been teaching this forever. But it takes a moment maybe of crises before everyone looks at you and says, what's the solution?
Yeah.
And to be prepared for that.
And you need to educate community so those ideas are right there to grab. That's what you're always looking for. When the community looks like a problem, needs solution, you're there already educated. So they grabbed a thing that can work, a biological solution. And that's really important, that they know that, to the right, our community really supports this. And we did that with rainwater harvesting for years. See, I was raised on cisterns, like one of these few people that were raised on cisterns. And so I understood that. I talked to people, they said, catch water, this is in California, it doesn't rain that much. I said, it doesn't have to rain that much. It only has to rain once. You've got water. But they said, why would you build a cistern if it doesn't rain that much, right? And I was like, I think you don't know. Yeah. But,
So we say local to global, and that's because we started local, we got pretty solid. Then we took it regional, we thought, if we're going to go to these IPCs, we need to go there from a regional perspective and get there and say, well, we're suffering from drought, this is our climate. And then when you get at the IPC, then you get together with others with the same issues. And you figure out what the solutions were in Zimbabwe or in all these other places. But regional, it's a very important thing if you can do a regional we did a California regional, and if you can be bigger regional than that. So we did regional, and then we began in 2005. We went to our first IPC in Croatia, and it was very small, but it was so powerful. And what Wes noticed right away, he comes from a family that's very socially activist. I did not, and culturally, we're always saying permaculture is site-specific, but it's culture-specific. And what we most of the time don't think about is our American culture, or whatever culture, U.S. American, that you're a part of. You forget that you have that you need to think about. And many people that I knew were like me. We were hesitant to step in. Wes is not hesitant to step in. He steps in right away. So we're at the IPC in Croatia. Things began to go wrong right from the beginning. And it was a young group of Croatians who had organized it with the best intentions. And they had Tony Anderson, one of the original permaculture teacher, designers. He had been assisting them, but major things happened. They lost their domain name, they had a little bit of embezzlement happening, and it almost went sideways altogether, and it left Tony Anderson one more time propping up, and he shouldn't be that. I mean, we should begin to have the skills where it's not a few people trying to keep the boat afloat. And so we're brand new, we've never been to one before, and he sees Ali Sharif, Bill Mollison, Tony Anderson, Narsana was there, and he just wandered down and he said, I think I have some ideas, some simple ideas that would make this something that could be handed from one group to the next group and keep things solid and not going sideways. And that was the beginning of forming the Friends of the International Permaculture Convergences. So the beauty of these convergences, I'm sure you've noticed, is that they are organized by locals. You will never go to any other conference, I don't think, that you have that same opportunity each and every time. A different culture, a different way of looking at things, a different way of organizing. Each one is entirely different. But that's a huge strain on the organizers. It's stressful to the max.
So we decided to form a group that would support their work over the years. So what happened is we set up a structure that said this is the way they should be carried on, but you can do a permaculture design course, you have
Some of that was
a
in place,
conference, and a convergence. And that's the main thing. Other than that, you're free range to do everything else. But this is a signature of having a convergence. So we had that set down, and then we started the process then of slowly educating each one about the intricacies of it. And then we'd have people that had hosted it before sit with them, talk with them. So that each time we would get better and better at it and over the years. So we started in 2005, there hadn't been a convergence in 9 years because and Perth it kind of blew up in too many directions and it came together. And then out of that, we decided that yes, it needed structure for picking the next ones, all these things that were really important to make it smoothly. And now we're at 14 as a result, of all those choices.
And one of the best was deciding that one would be here, one would be following, and each one had to do a regional before you could do that. So there was a practice run before the international happened. So I thought that was one of the best strategic.
It seems like a lot of work, but if you can't do a regional, you don't want to do an international. That was what we figured out. If you didn't get the original down, you weren't ready to do it, and come back in line, and we'll get you again when you're ready. So those.
And Narsana is sitting with us in the back and hosted a beautiful IPC in India, and they did a regional first. And don't you think that helped a lot? Doing that first, and because you heighten the awareness of the entire region, saying we're going to do this and bring and come, and so it's a very good strategy.
Yeah. So we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, we don't. These are random.
Okay. So this gives you a little idea of where we came from. These are all our programs that we did. They're all kind of happening at different times over the period. Sustainable World Radio, if you ever want to listen to and hear a lot of our programs. That started in 2004. Margie and I are in some. I interviewed David Holker, had a blast. Got him laughing.
As you would.
They got him laughing. And so we were involved. So we have a Vimeo channel. And on that Santa Barbara Permaculture Vimeo channel, you'll see a lot of our programs that we've done over the years.
And that would be another one of the strategies. Everything's different now, and that's why we're intent on handing this off to others, because younger will have newer ideas about how things are functioning now. But when we started, the print media, the radio, Sustainable World Radio, was on a public radio station. It went out to the world. And she's still, Sustainable Radio, she still has a podcast or...
Podcast, it evolved to a podcast.
And you can look it up, and it goes out. She has something like 30,000 or more than that.
30,000 people on it. But she, what happened is that we had it at the university on the radio channel, and early on, so it went on the web. It was live. and it went live. So that was always fun.
So what you're hearing over and over again is a design strategy using what's already in place. So when we went to the community college, this is this huge structure. We didn't have to say, where can we get a building? Where can we rent something? It's in place. So that's what you're looking at all the time. The magazine was the same thing. It was already functioning, very successful, very popular. We inserted it's a design strategy. We inserted ourselves in there. Same with the radio. Those are the things, if you can think of that in your own community, how can I not have to think of the whole thing by myself or as an organization? But
Right. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Okay. That's the flower. You'll see a lot of our programs radiate out from the flower. What we did is approach that and then did all kinds of different programs in each petal in time, so that we created the whole permaculture design as a way of educating our community. And so that's what we did. Each time you'll find all our different programs that all fit into a different petal. But what we found is we teach a small part, but we're always teaching the whole. That's what we're always thinking. We're always teaching the bigger thing. People don't realize that we bring something very simple, but it's really big, because it has all the design principles into it.
And we'll daylight someone else. Morag is here with us, and we had her in Santa Barbara in 2000.
In 2001 or 2, and she, a popular program, Eco Village Design.
So at that moment, eco-villages were really, the concept was very popular.
Yeah.
But nobody really knew how to do them, and also struggled with them enormously, because the consensus and how do we buy the property and all of that. And Morag came with a different model of how to do it. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
They said, Max Lindiger, and they bought the property first, said, here's what, if you come, you'll need to do solar, anything else you want to say, this, and this, those are the broad, and you can come in, but they didn't wrangle with things for years and years before they could move forward.
Yeah,
The Crystal Waters Eco Village is still very successful today. What Morag said to me recently, and I just went, wow. She said, my husband's at home and has the 2 sons, but she said, living in an eco village, it's kind of, what'd you say, effortless, or
it's just easy.
There's an ease.
There's an ease.
And so that's a model of how to live these eco villages, and look around for the ones that have been a success.
Okay, next slide. Oh, wow, okay. So
This is just some.
these are the organizations we worked with. Community Environmental Council is one of the most premier environmental groups in the country. It formed after the oil spill in 1969 and is responsible for so much environmental education. They were stellars in recycling. They were like recycling programs before, actually money-making recycling programs before anybody got there.
And one thing to say,
Toxic waste, they were frontline.
this group that formed the Community Environmental Council after that catastrophic oil spill in our channel, which we never thought we'd recover from, they were young 20-year-olds at the time. So if you think you're too young, they started the Earth Day, what do you call it? Celebration. Started with those out of Santa Barbara.
These were
Young
like
20-year-olds
the first Earth
got
Day
so much,
that started in our community.
and the first recycling and the first hazardous waste. Pretty soon they were traveling around the world, going to places like Poland, and said, can you come and help us with this hazardous waste thing? And they're in their 20s, so don't let your age
Yeah, right.
hold you up.
And then
Go forth, as Wes always
And then
says.
Margie was program director for 3 years at the Sustainability
At our community college,
Center
yeah.
for Sustainability at City College. So that gave us a huge platform. We ran so many programs through that. We got to do everything we wanted to dream about.
And the one
they
I-
paid for it.
One I'm particularly proud of, I mean, it let us bring in all kinds of permaculture, sneaky.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, we just
love,
stuck them in.
I started one series that I'm particularly proud of. It was called Cities as the Solution, not the Problem. Cities as the Solution. And from that, we brought in, again, we didn't focus on people who were famous authors, or we brought in young people who were already doing. We did one on, I don't know if any of you have heard of Gunter Pauli. He's an economist. we brought him in and did a 3-day thing, and he spun off so much from there. What are the other ones? The last one I really loved was tourism. Tourism is the biggest industry in the world and the most wasteful. And so we worked on all these biological. John Todd will be doing a
Presentation.
He's coming in via Zoom. He is the pioneer ecological design person, and he's been doing wastewater treatment using only plants and microorganisms, and so I had been exposed to a 5-star hotel in Taos, New Mexico, that took all the sewage water through his system. It came out clean drinking water. It came out cleaner than the water that went in. That's how we need to be designing. This waste is one of our biggest issues. I forget the other one, but waste.
That'll do.
Waste. If we don't solve that, and being in Taiwan, I don't know where all that plastic is going. Where the landfill is, or what's taking care of that waste stream, and that's a huge
So Margie,
thing.
and then we were on Quail Springs is a permaculture center
Yeah.
behind Santa Barbara, and Margie and I were came aboard.
Some of the founding
board members of it, and that's a center that goes along. It's an education center. It allowed us to have an education center too, but it's in drylands, really dry there. So it was a good way of introducing people there, and it has the most incredible cob buildings you'll ever see that are not built to code. And it's an interesting story. There's so many of them that the code officials have decided to ignore them. As they say, too many problems trying to sort it out. So we have these beautiful cob buildings that people can come and stay in, because they built so many that it's impossible. The planning department would have to spend the next 10 years just at that site. So they kind of made an agreement, don't build any more, and we don't see them. So they have existed like that. So there's things that happen like that. You have to know. But Quail Springs has been, Margie and I helped run a lot of different programs with Jeff Lawton, Darren Doherty.
Yes, it was a beautiful,
We had this site to bring all this and do permaculture design courses there.
including our California regional was.
Yes, on our California regional. So that gave us a whole different platform. So these are all the layers of stuff that we feel that we've been involved in, because it creates a bigger permaculture community, and each one has a different people who are drawn to it. So another
Next
slide.
one, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what it is. Oh,
This is just a variety of things that we've done.
Yeah.
This is the FI Friends of the Permaculture Credit Union. That's something to mention. So when we did the International Friends of, to assist with we did a lot of work around food systems in our area.
Yeah, so what happened with the food systems, we started to bring an education to create what we call, a whole food system of your county. So like totally everything involved with food. So what we do is we formed action groups. When we're starting to do, like you'll see us pop up on Facebook, we're a new group, you just invent your group. You don't have to be anything. Give it a name, you've got power. People look at it and think, oh, it exists. Well, this group is responsible for the Santa Barbara County Food Action Plan, which is an action plan around the total food of Santa Barbara County. And that was our goal. So, but we needed an action group to bring it forward. So these are the things that you can do. That's the neat thing about Facebook. You can just write something you want and just put a name on it and then start to advocate for something. So you don't have to be big. That's what we found out.
And we're currently obsessed with beaver.
Yeah, you'll find that out. So
How many people have beaver so it's not in Taiwan, no beaver, no. But in U.S., North America, and in England, part of Europe, beaver were instrumental in forming the whole, not just the ecosystem, the soils, everything, after glaciation came through. And I always forget the numbers, something like 600 million beaver were actively doing until the 1800s, where they were first, Russia trapped most of their beaver completely, and then they came over to North America.
did a hell of a good job.
until the beaver more or less disappeared. And
In
they
many
formed
areas.
these immense wetlands and waterways, and what we tie it into our doables is that a wetland is one of the most effective carbon sinks. So we're tying all these things into climate solutions that are not difficult, that are nature-based, and that they don't need any technology, they don't. And reintroducing beaver to our ecosystem, California, but all over North America, it's taken off like, it's become the most popular thing. When we started, they were seen as a rodent that was problematic and that you trapped and got rid of. And now, California, our governor just passed the beaver bill to
Yeah.
protect them, and are
To fund-
implementing it into the climate action that the state is involved with.
Yeah, and putting money to it,
And we talk about desertification, we talk about deserts. Some of the work that's being done in our area is seeing that a beaver, we have those wildfires, the mega fires, that when the beaver have begun doing their work and
Complex.
raiding it with the wetlands and also building tunnels that take the water out further and further, they're rehydrating the whole landscape. And that means when the mega fire comes through, it actually comes to a screeching halt. And then your wildlife have a refuge to go to, because we're losing a lot of species due to these mega fires. So that's currently we're focused on beaver.
Yeah,
We're
that's-
kind of obsessed with beaver.
Yeah, so we do that, because that's kind of what we kind of find something that's part of the big design that would tweak things to help out the whole total design of our landscape. And beavers is great because what we have now is we have young people training to put beaver, what they call beaver dam analogs, which are fake beaver dams,
To reintroduce, yeah.
into streams that have had no beaver for 100 years. So you need to prepare it, willows, whatever. You don't just throw them out of the plant. You know, you might want to, but somehow people thought about it's a great idea, just perishing them. No, we have young people working now to build habitat so that we were ready for, because California is going to be passing a big beaver bill that will be directing us into the future how we work with beaver. The legislature, which is kind of interesting because California has a crazy Republican, so, but they're only a small party. So, they have Democrats, large Democratic supermajority. The only bill that's ever passed in years with unanimous support was the beaver bill. They stood up and cheered, both
All of
sides
them.
cheered that they passed the beaver bill. Think of that.
People need something positive.
Yeah, people need something. They saw that both political sides saw that this is something we can do right now. This is something we can do that will change our landscape forever. And so this is where we're sitting at the edge. Now, we were involved with John D. Liu with ecosystem restoration. He was our first eco-hero. And so that's to do with broad scale. I mean, we're talking like whole ecosystems.
Decertified.
Decertified to bring them back, because they're places that nobody wants to go to, just not, the population's fled. And it's also a place where where small groups can go in and start to tweak it to bring the ecosystem back. And that will be a job of the future for young people, because there's so much of our landscape that's been.
Speak briefly about the Permaculture Credit Union, about finance.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, so the thing I was involved for years is I was the last president of the Permaculture Credit Union in 2013. There's a whole story why it was ended, and
Tell them the good, positive part, how it started.
it started out of the permaculture community, but we had some of the most innovative financial tools you could possibly use. We got them past the regulators. They would say no, we would say yes. That's what we do. Or, well, we'll close. How about that? How about we close if you don't let us do anything? So we said, no, we're not going to loan just to cars. So we have to loan to things that really affect the environment, affect people. And so we became doing amazing programs. We had set up a program with the Santa Fe Farmers Market, because farmers in farmers markets, they don't have access to small amounts of capital. You know, for doing the normal things like they want to buy, to build a greenhouse, they want to buy tools. You can't go to the bank and get that. Banks will not give you that kind of credit. So what we did is we set up a pool of funds with an organization We made over 150 loans. We changed the farmers market in Santa Fe. If you go in there, it's longer, it stretches for the year. The farmers are input. We set up things like if their crop failed, they wouldn't pay until they were back on their feet. All these things that take, things that you need to know about farming that help a farmer survive. And so we had 150 loans, no failures. Nobody ever thought of not paying a loan, which is pretty remarkable. And these are these programs. We did many more. I was working on an innovative credit card when we finally shut down. But that would have changed credit cards as far as I was concerned. But another day.
Let's, we want to give them time for questions. So there's a
Okay.
lot. You can just go through quickly. And one thing we'll talk about,
Okay.
Wes might capture,
Oh.
but let's just,
That's all our festivals.
those are festivals that we do. They are very powerful in your community if you do festivals. And the E-Modernary Street Painting Festival, see how big that is?
Yeah.
That has been going on for 30 years. It's where artists come from all over and they do Italian street painting. And it's a fundraiser in a way for our creative children's project in Santa Barbara. We decided, let's sneak in an environmental message. We'll have an artist who draws something that when you walk by, you go, what is that? The rest of them would be like Italian, something really beautiful art. The great part is you get to talk to the artists, you get to see what they're doing, but we put an environmental message, and this is, the first one was Beaver as an ecosystem restoration hero, and that's people with their part, and then Wes was mentioning that John D. Lew, his ecosystem restoration camps, those camps invite youth and others to come and do ecosystem restoration. There's one in Spain, and there's certification.
And this is our fun one with Paul Stamets, who we had come to Santa Barbara to get an Eco Hero Award. And he had a movie in 2009 that showed when this person walking through the forest, and the mycelium would light up. And with your footsteps, if you were walking through the forest with bare feet, that's what would happen. You were connected to the whole mycelium of the whole forest as you walk through. So that's what we wanted to capture. And those two characters, that's Louis and him that created.
And this is the marine permaculture that you heard, what's his name? Really our favorite person, but my mind just went blank. But that was
Brian.
honoring their work each time and getting the public, who was unsuspecting when they showed up,
So this
exposed to ideas.
This is what our 30 years ago. This is what our coast looked like. So this is what our coast looked like when the kelp was really alive. So that's what you get a picture of. And this one is a girl looking up into the soil rather than looking, reverse. She's looking at a bigger world than our world. And so
She's looking at the, save the soil, save the world. And so we all need to learn about the micro-life that makes healthy soil. So we're going to have to wrap.
So Margie designs these. She's a designer.
And then an artist. That's never me being the artist. But one of the last things is we mentioned it, we do these Eco Hero Award events at a beautiful community theater in downtown Santa Barbara. We invite the whole community, and we showcase the work of somebody who's been involved for 30 plus years with solutions that, this is the way it reads, the Santa Barbara Permaculture Network Eco Hero Award honors those individuals who have committed themselves to work in the service of the planet and its inhabitants for more than 30 years with actual solutions, that's the permaculture part, and concrete ways forward that benefit many, often on a global scale, while demonstrating pathways forward for future generations. Now, what we want to do with this, these people, these are wonderful. This is our next one, Natural Builders. They are ready to hand off this knowledge to a younger generation. So at the other end of the program is the youth or younger generation in the audience is welcome, and then connect with them so this information can be passed on. And that's the most important thing, actually, that we can be doing.
That's all our eco heroes so far. Margie says I got them.
They're squishy, yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Stretched is the word.
Stretched.
So does anybody have any questions or?
Okay, we can pick one more. Yeah.
Oh, we do the seed swap. That's a very important event we do every
And we
year.
do a lot of sea level rise, so we thought that would be appropriate. We're really involved because it's close and personal. Let's put it that way.
We're at sea level.
We're at sea level. We're not gonna. We're gonna have to be quite creative. But these are the kind of programs like we're starting next year already, and
And how many of you are involved in seed saving? And
good. That's really important because that's one of our big things. So click the last one. That's it. That's what Margie and our famous thing.
And what Wes said to me in our beginning days of doing organizing, you need 2 people. Otherwise, you're going to burn out as an activist. He also said to have a male-female energy is very important. It will help a lot to have those 2 perspectives.
Yeah. I'm thinking.
So, anyone have any questions?
Just a reflection.
Yeah.
For you, it's local to global, but for us, like in the Philippines, like we got the permaculture concept, practice, principles, ethics globally, and we're trying to do it mainstream it in the local.
Right.
So I was just reflecting the difficulty of that route because our advocacy is to introduce permaculture in the smallholder farmers and even people. One of the poorest in our country, in the Philippines, even the urban poor.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to reflect that it's a little bit different, the approach. And of course, right now here in the Philippines, only those who can afford the ABC are the ones who can, learn about permaculture. But it's so hard for us to get funding for the smallholder farmers.
Yeah, but that's why we brought it to the City College. Because actually, City College right now, if you are a local resident of Santa Barbara, your college is free. Your books, your everything is free.
But
so the
back to-
permaculture course is free for that, for people that are in our county.
But there are, we have a friend in Santa Barbara Permazone, and he has a system in Africa where the farmers are sharing with each other. It's when cell phones were so popular, ahead of us actually, and how the farmers could share the information with each other. There are many organizations around the world that are figuring a way around an expensive permaculture design course.
So look up, I think is that still the name? It was Permazone. And it was able to farmers to communicate with each other, like other crops, what the market, what price they were getting. So they could communicate with each other, so they weren't caught out with somebody offering them too less for their crop. They knew that the farmer down the road was getting X number of dollars, right? And so they could all share that. And they also shared growing, what was happening with climate, how they were being affected, rainfall. It was amazing. It's our good friend Hugh. Last name. So these are all the things that came out of Santa Barbara as a result of us doing these courses. Yeah.
And also, I was thinking of the Australian permaculturists who went to Cuba when Cuba was suffering almost starvation, actually, in 1991, where the Soviets left and the oil, they had no oil. They've been doing industrial farming. Roberto Perez, Power Community is a beautiful documentary, and Robin Francis and others went to kind of help, and they reintroduced urban farming in Havana. Let's put it a different way. They started. Were you part of that at all, or around?
A bit later on, I went
Later. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not Robin Francis, it's
Pan
Robin.
Morgan.
Yeah, it's the other Robin.
Did Robin wasn't part of that?
No,
Okay.
it's the other Robin, or Clayfield. So they were Clayfield. They were 21-year-olds. They were like 23, 24-year-olds, a lot of them.
Yes,
I think,
really young.
And suddenly they got a grant from the Australian government, a good chunk of money, to go over and help with urban, with introducing urban gardens to a community that wasn't a gardening community. They were mostly growing industrial food. So
Roberto said they were more industrial than the U.S.
Yeah.
Their farming style, and he said Cubans don't know how to garden at that moment.
Yeah, and so they were able to. This is the interesting thing. when they came into Cuba with the money, there was a Cuban revolutionary who was head of their agriculture science. He just thought permaculture was the answer. So he stopped the Cuban government from grabbing their money. Because Cuba was so desperate for foreign exchange, they were just going to grab it. But he put a clamp on it and made sure it was directed to permaculture projects in Cuba to make it. So that's how Cuba began. So when we went back to Cuba, they held an honor for these young people. They were honored for their work.
And that the power of these international permaculture convergences, when it went to Cuba, it was to observe what had happened and to highlight it to the world, and even for the world to take a look and see that the U.S. was still imposing an embargo. All these different things get daylighted when we show up as an international community, an international body of people coming and observing. It's very important. And then you go home and say, what is this embargo all about? Why are we still doing that? But in addition, it showed we needed to know this in the U.S. These in downtown Havana, between two collapsed buildings, they would put a strip and put an urban farm in there, or a garden.
Because the city was falling
and
down.
feeding their population.
Yeah, so the city was basically falling down, and that would become an urban garden. That was the next urban garden, the next building that collapsed. It was pretty amazing when you look at it, of what it transformed. And Margie and I, what happens in Cuba, the permaculturists have a different, government treats them differently because of their work. So they have a lot more freedom to do their work. Like that we saw. We went and visited people at their home and stuff. They have a lot more freedom because of the work they do and the permaculture work.
There was a lot going on, and if you want to watch that, it's called The Power of Community, Roberto Perez. You can Google and then put that, and then YouTube, and you can watch it for free. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, and it gives a little picture. So you don't know the impact you'll make in life. That's all. When you try it. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sir, you told about the sewage management.
Yes. Something you mentioned,
Yeah.
because nowadays with the increase of tourism, places like our remote area, the river get polluted because of the sewage
Yeah.
management.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That is the major issues nowadays,
Okay.
increasing in our old age. So you are conducting offline or online courses, or any technology you want to share that?
Yeah.
Sure, one that is that pertains to what Brian von Hertzen, he went to India and did a biochar, believe it or not, handling sanitary waste.
Yeah, but to talk, you were talking about
Now,
John
Sana, do you
Todd.
know anything about that?
Biochar.
Biochar, yes, and if you look at Brian von Hertzen Climate Foundation, go through his, so it's for how to handle human waste in large cities. He did some really good
But
work.
in our place, dry toilets.
Dry toilets.
Dry toilets, as well as now with the in main city, what did you face the problem? Now we are going towards modernization. The toilets are modern type of
Right.
toilet. Because of that, all that goes into sewage, and STP are not properly functioning. You told me that they are using some
Yeah.
material which comes out from a
Sure.
culture, it comes out a clean water. It's not very
This is John
John Todd.
Todd's work, and he'll be speaking online. And one example is in San Francisco, the something or other utilities building. It's an 8-story building, and they did a similar thing. They installed a
Salt water.
came down and it went through almost like a tidal pool. So John Todd, I would look him up and watch his YouTubes, his explanation of handling waste. He says 90% of all of our problems in that regard can be solved just using biological means.
So we've got these books out here. This recent book is on the table, and he is a good source of how to clean up sewage.
And I was mentioning hotels and
you can say grey water harvesting.
Yeah.
It's steps way beyond gray water, definitely.
So it's a whole series of tanks that have biological solutions built into them that clean the water. So he's done it in China, just most toxic places, and I think we run out of time.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
can shut us out.
Thank you, everybody.
一刷根39大林榜呀，藤蔓当当